5 scores! Rick Budd.
We decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick Budd and Gary Miller.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 47 of Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan, and joining me as always, my winger Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, how's things in the fall?
Oh, without golf, it sucks, but it was nice, and it was a beautiful day today, and I worked out, but I would have loved to have played golf as opposed to working out, I can tell you that.
Well, it's not a lot of fun for anybody anywhere, and hopefully they get this thing settled sooner than later, but it's easy for me to say sitting here in Florida. But our guest today, Squid, was born in, speaking of from a ways, born in Stockport, England, raised in Markham, Ontario, went undrafted and signed with the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1984, where he'd played on and off for 8 years, voted one of the top 100 Leafs of all time, played in 1,235 games with 6 teams over a 20-year career, scored 421 goals, 512 assists for 933 points. I think we've pumped his tires enough here, Squid. Okay, let's please welcome to the Ultimate Leaf Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show, Steve Stumpy Thomas. Stumpy, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm just a little bit unhappy that I'm the 47th guest you've had on your show.
Well, you know, there's a lineup to get into. Like, Squid's so popular, he can't help it. They're calling him from everywhere.
Well, this high quality podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, listen, we actually share a favorite watering hole in Markham. I'm going to let you know the secret here, called the Duchess.
Yeah.
So a lot of our hockey buddies are pretty grumpy these days with that off limits. But I got to tell you, a little secret, Squid is working out now, as you heard him say in the introduction, because I promised him I'd get him to skate with our Duchess team to see if he can crack the lineup like you did a couple of years ago. So how you keep him busy these days?
Well, that's a tough thing to do. And, you know, I got to give a shout out to Paul. He's hanging on by his fingernails there at the Duchess right now. So if anyone's listening and they get a chance to order some takeout from the Duchess there in Markham on Main Street, Markham, that'd be really helpful for Paul. But what have I been doing? I'm kind of echoing the same sentiments as Rick. I've been really missing the last month of golf since our club opened. Actually, opening day, I got a chance to play once. And then that afternoon, they shut the whole thing down. So I haven't swung the club since then. And I've only played golf once since I think it was September last year. So there hasn't been a whole lot going on. I've been doing kind of the same thing as Rick. I've been having, 3 or 4 workouts a day. So I've been trying to get myself in half decent shape for when I have to get a chance to put shorts on, and that's short sleeve shirt. So I'm doing, there hasn't been much going on. I'll tell you, I've been doing some of those, greeting things on the phone, and other than that, I haven't really done anything. Just nothing really.
Well, I was going to say, before we get started, go any further, Squid and I love the nicknames, and we talk about this all the time. And you've got a dandy. So how did that one come up, and who labeled you with Stumpy?
I guess it was one of the first couple times I came in the dressing room, and I had that one particular time I had just a pair of shorts on and no shirt, and I was walking into my stall, and Billy DeLago looked over and he goes, "Look at this guy, he looks like a stump." And ever since that day, it stuck, and I'm like, I can't get rid of him no matter what I do. I probably have to say that it's nothing anatomical. It's just it's just the size of my body.
I'd like to know how many nicknames Billy D has given to people, because it's probably in the dozens over the years, probably 30, 40 people that he's probably given nicknames to.
Well, what are some of the examples that he's doled out?
Oh, I can't even remember, but there was at least 7 or 8 in Toronto.
Yeah,
when we played there. I mean,
probably Screamin' Lehman would be.
Yeah, I think he came up with that one. Yeah. Stumpy. What else did he come up with? Jimmy Crack Corn, I think.
Oh yeah,
Jimmy Crack Corn.
Yeah. Oh God, who knows? I mean, there's probably a lot of them that came out that initiated by him and carried on by others.
Well, he was a fun guy to be around. As you know.
Oh, yeah.
He was a lot of fun. He had a great sense of humor, and he was fun to be around. That's for sure.
Yeah, we had it well. He was on the show too, so we've had him. So we've heard some of his stories too, and some of his run-ins with some of the guys. But we want to take you back, Stump, and go back to speaking to the earlier years, playing for the Markham Waxers and then on to the Marlies.
Yeah. Well, I played minor hockey in Markham, and then with the Markham Waxers being in my hometown there in Markham, I think they thought that it would be a good idea to bring a local kid in, and I happened to be that guy, I guess. And then when I got there, I had the great opportunity to play with Adam Oates for 2 years. So that really helped my career. It gave me a pretty good boost and a pretty good confidence level going to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, Frank Bonello. I don't know if you guys ever remember a guy by the name of Frank Bonello, who was the general manager with the Marlboros at the time. And I was called up in the playoffs, and I was fortunate to get the last 4 goals of the that playoff year. Only going 1 round, but my last 4 goals were against Jim Ralph, and then against Ottawa 67s, and then from there the Leafs gave me an opportunity and signed me to a free agent contract in '84 in summer.
Squid.
Well, so you started at St. Catharines, and I mean, you come up to Toronto, and
I know what you're gonna say.
The story.
So you have an assistant coach who is talking to you once you get there, and of course your job, you come up, you're supposed to score goals. You were scoring goals in the American Hockey League, and that was expected of you. And John Brophy had something to say to you, and I mean, on this show you can say whatever you want, Stumpy. So what exactly did Brophy say to you between periods of one of the games?
I got to get it right, but I don't do this little this story any. It should be told a lot better, and the best guy to tell this story is Gary Lehman, because he's got the John Brophy voice, right? But things weren't going so well. I guess I wasn't moving my feet. I wasn't taking the body like he wanted me to play. So Brophy comes in the dressing room. He's yelling at a bunch of guys around the room, just picking guys out to yell and say something to. And he said to me, he goes, "And Thomas, it's 40 miles. It's 40 miles to St. Catharines, but it's 4,000 miles back to Toronto." So, needless to say, I picked up my game a little bit and tried to get her going. But it was 40 miles to St. Catharines. But to get back to that NHL level after not, getting bumped back and forth my first year quite a number of times, I think my best time coming from St. Catharines to Toronto was about 35 minutes. I got pulled over doing 120 miles an hour on the 401. So,
well, just
I get
on
excited
that,
when I got called up.
But just on that stuff, and when you're going back and forth, I mean, how is your mindset through all of this? I mean, there were a number of players in that team who ended up making the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I use Craig Muni as an example, who was doing everything except driving the bus. And maybe he was driving the bus, but he couldn't get a sniff. Did his situations like that concern you, that the opportunity may never present itself with the Maple Leafs? He eventually had to move on and won 3 cups with Edmonton, but that's another story.
I honestly think that throughout your career, you need the breaks to go to your way at some point. For me, just being signed by the Leafs at that summer of '84, my first training camp, Bill Root broke my hand in a hit, and I went to rehab for 6 weeks, and then was immediately sent down to St. Catharines, where I had the great fortune of playing with Wes Jarvis, who was my centerman. And all Wes wanted to do was just give me the puck because he recognized I could shoot it, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot along the same lines as my Markham Waxer days, where I got a chance to play with Adam Oates. So I really believe that you need you need a few breaks along the way. And especially for me, being a non-drafted player and being a smaller guy out there, I needed every break I could get. But if you're getting those breaks, you have to make good with the situation that you're put in. And I was really determined to make the best of that situation, and it worked out pretty good. It's
I would say it worked out pretty damn good, actually, because you played 20 damn years in the league.
No, so. But I often look at it like I have a son that plays hockey, and when he first started, he got traded to Montreal, got called up for like 20 games or so, and never really got an opportunity to play on a good line. He was always a fourth line guy playing 6 minutes a game, and I mean, it's when you have that window of opportunity in a game where you have 6 minutes of ice time, you have to do something special to pique their interest for another 6 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes. So I guess I had the opportunity to play with you, Rick, and Billy D when I first got there. And what a great honor for me to go and play on the first line of a National Hockey League team, and a hockey team that I grew up watching. It was just like a highlight of my whole career. And to get that opportunity to play with you and Billy D, I had to make sure that I wasn't the anchor on that line. I think you were, Rick, at the time.
Yeah, until we collided at the blue line that one game. Yeah, you would have loved that, Mike. I mean, I don't know what the heck we were doing, but we were both coming flying up the side.
I think we were on a power play breakout or something.
Yeah, and we were going across the blue line, and neither one of us saw the other guy. Boom, and we're both down. We're both laying on the ice. Guy Kinnear, he didn't have a clue what the hell to do. I think he stayed on the bench. I don't even know if he came on the ice.
I don't know, but I remember getting up before you, buddy. There was no way I was going to miss a shift by getting hit by my own player.
Well, you didn't have as far to go as I did to get up. So
that's true.
Well, I was going to say, now let's talk. You've talked about some of the players. So let's talk about some of the coaches. You had Dan Maloney at the first, and then the polarizing John Brophy. He gave you a nice welcome to the NHL, as we've just heard. Apparently, the first period with the Leafs, as we just heard about. How was your relationship with those guys? And maybe speak to something. You obviously had probably a run, and maybe you didn't with Brophy, and maybe some of the instances around him.
Well, I remember with Brof, I think he liked the way I played, but he really pushed me to be a player that he wanted. He wanted the type of player he wanted me to be. I think he knew I had the ability to shoot or score, but that physical attribute of my game, I think he brought out to a certain extent. But I have a good story about Brof. I remember going up to Halliburton. Went on our way to Halliburton on a snowmobile trip. This was during the All-Star break, and we had 4 days off. And so me and Todd Gill and a bunch of guys a bunch of my friends went up to Lindsay, and then from Lindsay we drove up to Halliburton. And as it turns out, we all drove our snowmobiles. It was a really snowy day, and we parked it in front of this bar. And we went into the bar, and all of a sudden I was taking my helmet off, putting it on the bar, and the whole place was fighting. And I'm on the dance floor with a guy, and let's go, and we're just going at it and fighting, and Todd Gill's cracking guys over the head and stuff. And so as it turns out, I got punched and right in my eye, and I wasn't even looking. Some guy came and punched me, and so that was the end of it for me, because I could feel my eye just going out like this. I could hardly see out of it. So I got back, put my helmet on, got back on the snowmobile, and we all started to go. I get back to the little chalet that we were staying at, and my eye was just a slit. I couldn't even see out of it. And this is during the All-Star break. So I have to go back in 2 days, and I have to explain why I've got a broken orbital bone. So I go back, and I'm wearing sunglasses. I walk into the Leaf room, and the office was just inside the door to the left. And I'm cringing as to what I'm going to have to say, and maybe I'm going to have to miss games or whatever. But I walk in Brof's office, and I take my sunglasses off, and I said, "Hey, Brof, I was in a bar during this thing, and some guy suckered me in the side of the face because I guess I played for the Leafs or whatever, and he was a Hab fan, and he looked at me, and he's like, my eyes just out here like this, and he goes, "I love black eyes. It adds character to your game. Get out there, play hard." He loved black eyes. He just loved them. So anyway, I finished up playing. I put a visor on, I think, and played, but that was pretty scary.
Now, any other memories come to light with him?
Well, just all the stories that the guys tell about his past. I mean, you had him, Rick, in Birmingham, so I'm sure he had he did some things. One story I do remember was in the minors, and in the minors, the facilities aren't nearly as good as what we're used to at the National Hockey League level. And there was a table in the middle of the dressing room, and it had red Gatorade, it had purple Gatorade on it, and it had all the Gatorade stuff. And just beyond it was a coat hanger with all the players' suits and ties and shirts and everything. And after a period, we didn't do so well, and he came in the room and took a hockey stick and just took all the drinks off the table and just absolutely saturated everyone's clothes with like pink and purple and red and all that kind of juice. So it was crazy.
Well, I had the privilege of playing for Brof as a 19-year-old. Yeah. And I got to tell you, what a way to break into pro hockey to have Brof as your coach as a 19-year-old.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Things that he would do. The best story I remember is he went around the room one game after a period, and he roasted every single guy. And he was making his way all the way around the room. And then all of a sudden he stops at Paul Henderson.
Sorry guys, I gotta plug my phone in here. Yeah. I apologize.
Yeah, all of a sudden he stops.
Keep going, Squid.
At Paul Henderson. And he the first time and only time I've ever seen Brof lost for words. He didn't know what to say because he didn't want to say anything to Paul like he said to the other guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So then he just looks at Paul and he goes, "Henny, maybe you can talk to the big fella up there and he can give us a hand because these guys are brutal." So what a way to be introduced to pro hockey, playing for a guy like Brof, and the characters that we had on the team were unbelievable. I mean, like, we had a bunch of older players. We had our 6 19-year-olds, but we had older players. They were playing backgammon a half an hour before the game for money, and where you change into your put your clothes and everything. And they're in there playing backgammon for money, and I'm thinking, what the hell are these guys doing? Like, we got a game in a half an hour.
Well, one of the funniest things, and one of the things that really opened my eyes to, where I was, the situation I was at, was we just finished filming the movie Youngblood in the summer of '84, and then they're telling us that we're going to have the opportunity to skate. We'll have ice time for you. And there was myself and Pete Zuzzle and Paul Cavallini, and there was other guys that were NHL players, and we're going to their first or second training camps. And as it turns out, they didn't tell us that there was like 3 or 4 $200,000 cameras on the ice at the same time. So anyway, I got to camp, and our camp, if you remember, Ricky, was over at Belleville, my first camp in '84.
Oh God!
So it was like lap after lap, and this rink turned out to be an Olympic-sized arena. So if you can imagine how much skating we did, so me not being in the best shape I wanted to be in for my first training camp because of that movie was. So we did the skating on day 1. Day 2, we had scrimmages, and I got hit into the boards, and I broke my hand with Billy Root. Went down to the minors, like I said earlier. So I rehabbed for 6 weeks. My first practice back in St. Catharines with the Saints, and I get on the ice a little bit early. I'm the first guy out there, and I'm like, this is pro hockey. I'm in pro hockey right now. I'm making $25,000 playing pro hockey. This is awesome. So I get there, I'm doing some stretching. I start skating around. I'm shooting some pucks and stick handling a little bit. Guys are trickling on the ice periodically, coming out. Again, I was probably out there about 25 minutes before practice started. So guys would come on the ice. We'd be passing a few pucks back and forth. And then probably about 5 minutes before practice started, mind you, Claire Alexander was on the ice 20 minutes before, just working on his slap shot. And he was our coach. So about 5 minutes before practice starts, two guys, which I probably shouldn't name because I wouldn't want them to throw me under the bus, but two guys roll on the ice. Before they get a step on the ice, they take their helmets off and their gloves off and leave their stick on the bench, step on the ice, and skate laps around, take a couple of slow laps around the rink with a coffee and a cigarette in their mouth. 5 minutes before practice starts. They have a styrofoam cup of coffee and a smoke in their mouth, and they're skating around the rink and they're just talking to each other. And I'm like, oh my God, where am I right now? This is pro hockey. This is crazy. I got to get out of here. So, well, that was another funny one that I remember.
I was going to say, growing up in Toronto, as you talked about, you were a Maple Leaf fan. You played for two recognizable junior teams. So you were very well aware, not only as a fan, but as a junior player, how highly held the Toronto Maple Leafs were amongst the city. So a couple of things here. Number one, how emotional was that for you to be now part of this iconic franchise? And number two, how did life change for you once you started playing for the Leafs? Everywhere you went, you would get recognized. Somebody would know you at the store, at the movie theater, anywhere. You had a little bit of exposure playing for the Marlies, I would say, but this must have just been well beyond your expectations.
Yeah, I just got to start off by, saying that, I did grow up being a Leaf fan. And my dad used to tell me to put my pajamas on so I could watch Rick play before the games.
What an asshole.
No, but you know what? Like, growing up as a Leaf fan and adoring the Leafs my whole life, and then finally getting that opportunity to play. How did it change? I think the biggest thing for me was my mindset as to bring in the consistency that I needed to play every night. My biggest motivation was I don't want the media to write shit about me in the newspaper the next day. So that kind of spurred me on to being, as good at playing as well as I could play every night. And I mean, Ricky and Billy D, they certainly helped me out a great deal. And but yes, you do get recognized throughout the city. It's not like I got any free dinners from too many people, but I found myself buying the dinners all the time. But no, it's just knowing that I had the opportunity to play for such a storied team. And I'll never, like, blue and white runs through my veins, right? And I to be able to sit back after a career and say, I played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's a huge accomplishment for me. And I'm super, super proud of that.
Well, for both of you guys, here's one, and you'll start off with you, Stephen, as when Squid, you can jump in here too. As a player, did you feel at times you were carrying the heartache of a city that was starving for winter for so long?
I didn't really feel that because, my first year in '84, we missed the playoffs. And then we went on to have some pretty good playoff runs, didn't we, Rick, in 84 or 85 and 86. And you could see the success of the team starting to build, I think, at that point. Mm-hmm. And then I went away Rick and I got traded together to Chicago. So I went away and played in Chicago. Then I went to the Islanders and then Jersey. And then I came back to Toronto again. And the opportunity to go from the old Maple Leaf Gardens to the new Air Canada Center was a thrill in itself. And then once we got to the Air Canada Center, we started to have some really, really competitive and really good teams that could conceivably have won the cup. And so I didn't really feel the heartache of how the public felt about mm-hmm. the Leafs, because I was kind of wrapped up in what I was doing. Yeah. And we were successful doing it at the time, that I played there. And I'm certainly not saying it was all about me or anything, but I will say that we had some really good teams and we had a good chance of winning, especially between 99 and 2001. But I certainly do feel the heartache of a lot of Toronto Maple Leaf fans. I always thought that I always thought that, for the longest time since '67, there was just that feeling of there wasn't a high expectation for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and now there is like super high expectation of them, because not only we haven't won in a long time, but there's been a buildup through years and years to get to the point they're at now. And if my message would be one thing, it would be just to those players. It would be just have no regrets. Don't look back at the end of this season and look back and say, "Wow, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that." It's just have no regrets.
Squid?
Yeah, it was well for me. I mean, it was more frustrating than anything. I think the time that I spent in Toronto. I mean, I loved it every second of it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you're playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You're playing at Maple Leaf Gardens. I mean, it can't get any better than that. And the frustrating thing was the ownership and how he ran the hockey club and how he wouldn't pay somebody good enough money to do a good job as a general manager. We never had anybody who could make that deal at the deadline that could put us over the top. And I believe in '85 and '86, we probably had teams that with a little bit of a boost or with a better, system from our coaches, probably could have done a lot better in the playoffs. And we did get to the second round 2 years in a row, and then with Dan Maloney as our coach. And then all of a sudden they didn't want to pay him anymore and any more money, so off he goes to Winnipeg. And that's when Broth took over. So,
and that was a pretty good. There was like you said earlier, 6 or 7 19, 20-year-olds on that team that were, you know what I mean? So there was a really good mix of young and veteran leadership as well. So, I mean, and a lot of those players went on to have great careers. Yeah. And it's too bad they couldn't stick around in Toronto for a few more years, because I really think something could have come of that.
Well, you touched on it, Squid. The one person, the one sort of thorn in the side of everybody was Mr. Harold Ballard, and I'd be remiss if we didn't bring him up, Stumpy. And the thing about it is, speak to some of the antics going around that team with the owner, the Wild coaches. I mean, you've already touched on some of the players. You were shaking your head. This is the NHL I've worked so hard to get to. Yeah. And if only the fans knew what was really going on. What was going through, like Boris Salmon, just giving the idea, he told us, and I've used this a lot, he'd arrive at the rink, see a crowd at the front of the dressing room, thinking, "Oh God, what's going on today?" It's just what's going on in the circus.
Well, somebody sent me a YouTube clip of Harold doing an interview just recently.
I sent it to Mike
about women in the dressing room. Oh my God! Oh, that was like classic Harold. He used to shuffle around I mean, he used to live in the building at the time. And he used to shuffle around, and we used to stay on the ice. A bunch of the younger guys used to stay on the ice for like an hour after practice. And every morning or late morning, Harold would come downstairs and he'd want to have a shower and jump in the hot tub. And there was me, Russ, Wendell. We were just coming off the ice, and he was in the shower. So Russ and Wendell, I think, I'm not going to put myself in that category, but Russ and Wendell filled up the hairdryer with talcum powder. And every morning he'd get the hairdryer and he'd be drying his hair. So this time he didn't even know, but there was a whole hairdryer full of talcum powder. So he flipped the thing on and he put it on his head, and his whole face was just white. And he was laughing so hard. He just loved being around the guys and he just loved he wanted to be one of the guys. And he just loved that
the
camaraderie and the funny stuff that happens in a dressing room. I think he really enjoys that. He was a guy's guy.
Well, all the players all liked him personally. They all treated everybody nicely. He just didn't pay you as players, and he just was the wrong guy to run the hockey club. So everybody knew you weren't going to win with him as the owner, and that's just kind of how it went. So speaking of which, along comes 1987 before, and your part has been called one of the worst trades in Maple Leaf history. Yourself, along with my co-host, and Bobby McGill, swapped for Ed Olchuk and Al Secord. Take us through that day, and I don't know, were you having a contract problem or something with the Leafs at the time or something along those lines, but any inkling that you were going to get moved?
It was his fault.
Squid, you
It
can
was
jump
his
in, too.
fault.
It might have been my fault.
Well, I
because
know you were pissed, Squid, but let's hear Steve's side too.
I was making a pittance. I was making in those days, I was making like 80,000 Canadian, and I was asking for like 130 for on a 3-year deal or something like that. And I was in the weight room across the hall from our dressing room, and Jerry McNamara came in the weight room, and he just looked at me. He goes, "Mal à la tête, mal à la tête." And he was pointing at his head like I got a big headache or something. And he said, "You got to sign this. You got to sign it." So at the time I had Don Meehan, and Don was like, let's hold off a little bit. Then it turns out I get traded that summer, like a couple of weeks later on a golf course, I think. Were we on a golf course?
Yeah, we were at the Telemedia Golf Tournament up in, where the hell is it? I don't know where it was. It was in somewhere up in northern Ontario.
Yeah.
Not Nobleton Lakes or one of those places.
Yeah, so it turns out I signed with Chicago and get 220, 240, 260 US. And that's a far cry from the 130. But in retrospect, I was sad that I didn't want to leave Toronto. I wanted to stay there for my whole career, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that, I didn't want to leave either. I mean, I thought, this is where I want to stay. This is where I want to finish my career.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can play, 12, 15 years here in Toronto and then retire and live here. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And, it's funny because when Stevie was talking about that, like, after that first year in Chicago, which we both had pretty good years, and I scored 43 goals.
Yeah.
Well, never mind Harold being cheap, Bob Pulford was worse than him. He offered me a $40,000 pay decrease.
After scoring
43 goals. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Like, are they cousins or what?
That was just like a big time old school mentality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those guys they're all in bed together anyway.
Yeah, well, they ran the league, and they had Eagleson in one pocket, all of them, and they did whatever the hell they wanted to do.
Exactly.
Well, in Toronto, you had a pretty couple colorful coaches. In Chicago, you had another pretty out there type guy whose name comes up quite a bit on this show, Mike Keenan. Talk about your experience with him as a coach.
Well, for me, when Rick and I first got traded to Chicago, we had Bob Murdoch.
Bob
Murdoch as
that's
coach.
right.
He was like, he wouldn't yell at anybody. He was like the polar opposite from Mike Keenan when he came in. And, Mike's got a reputation of playing some head games and mind games with his players and doing some really unorthodox things to guys. Just to try and get the most out of them. I truly think that he did those things so that player would get so fucking mad at him that you get a little bit more intensity out of in their game. But Mike used to start me and Jocelyn Lemieux, and he said, if you don't get a hit in your first shift, you're not playing the rest of the game. So he had us running around literally like chickens with our heads cut off, and with no rhyme or reason. There was no system of a forecheck. There was no, that we never, for 3 years that I was in Chicago, we didn't work on the power play once.
Jesus.
I got a good story. When our first year in Chicago too, Bob Murdoch, like he said, he never said a word. Like, he was very, very quiet. We're down 3-1 to St. Louis in the first round of the playoffs. We're in St. Louis for game 5. And he comes in after the first period and starts screaming and yelling and throwing garbage cans around. We're all looking and going, what the hell's going on? It's a little late, isn't it, for screaming and yelling when you haven't said a word all year? Yeah. And then that's when they went across the hall where the coach's room was, slammed the door. So there was him and Sutter, Daryl Sutter, and who was the other, the goalie?
Kluche.
No, I forget. No, it wasn't him. But anyway.
Oh, Wayne Thomas.
So they couldn't open the door.
Yeah.
So they had to so we're on the ice getting ready for the third period, skating around. And they're going, where are the coaches? We said, well, we don't know. We said, we don't need them anyway. We'll start without them. And the referee said, no, we can't. So anyway, they had to get a forklift, and put it through the door and pull the door off to get them out of the room so that they can come out and coach the last period.
Yeah.
Now, Stumpy,
You're right. We didn't need him.
were you on the ice when Dennis Varg got put up against? Were you there when he got put up against the glass by Doug Wilson for when Keenan was making you guys skate that day? And he wouldn't stop. He kept circling instead of stopping on the red line.
Was that at Arrowhead Pond?
No. That was in Chicago.
Oh, okay. I remember doing a whole number of those skates, and I remember that vaguely. If I remember correctly, didn't you seize up and Greg Gilbert seized up, and guys were just cramping. It was it was inhumane what he was making us do, and you could only do what you could do until your body broke down. And this is just, it was ridiculous. Some of the things and the antics and the head games and all the mind games that he played on players. It was just terrible.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you what, the only thing I will say is Mike, I thought, was a pretty decent coach. I thought that he was well prepared. The assistants did a lot of the work. And I think, I believe he ran the bench pretty decently. But when it came to everything else, I mean, forget it. I mean, he just wasn't a player's coach. He wasn't, he didn't give a shit who you were.
Yeah, it's one of those old school things. You can't act like that with the players today. You couldn't, he wouldn't last.
God, no.
Guys wouldn't respond. They'd lose all their confidence level, and you'd have I don't know if that didn't happen to Patrick Laine this year with Tortorella. You know what I mean? There's another old school type of coach that didn't get the best out of his best player, and I think these players these days have to be coddled. They have to have a coach that puts their arm around them and said, "Okay, let's go. Okay, it's time to go. I know you've gone through a bit of adversity, but we still believe in you, and now's your time to shine." And that goes a long way for a player, rather than sitting him on the bench and paying him $8 million.
Right, communication. I mean, you're not that far removed from being an assistant coach in the NHL.
Right.
And I think that communication with these young guys in the league today is so crucial that you sit them down and talk to them. And like you said, give them a pat on the back, say, listen, we know you haven't been scoring and things haven't been going your way. You're not playing bad. You're playing fine. We just need you to take it to another level, one more level, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, I was oftentimes used as a conduit as well for players to get messages to the coach or vice versa. More so the vice versa side of it, where Coop wanted me to, convey some messages to him, to those players. But if things continued to be, on the same path with that particular player, then that's when Coop will step in and ask the player to come to the office. And they'd sit in there, and I'd be in those meetings every single time he brought a guy in the office. And that player, every time that player came in the office, was scared shitless to go in there because he didn't know whether he was going to get scratched or what. But that kid left with a smile, and he felt really good about himself after that meeting with the head coach. And I've never been in a meeting like that with any other coach, even when I was playing or with Hitchcock or anything like that when I coached in St. Louis. But he made guys, every one of those players to the player would go through an absolute brick wall for John Cooper. That's why his teams are successful.
Well, Bruce Boudreau, we had him on one day, and he was telling us when he first started with Washington, one of the mistakes he made was he realized that you're dealing with 23 personalities. You have to have sort of 23 different approaches on a daily basis. And Squid sort of concurred with all of that. And he used Mike Green as an example, because when he first came up, Green was his star defenseman, and he made a mistake and he went down and lost it on him. And Green was done for the game. He just was emotionally a wreck. And then he realized, what did I do to that kid? I can't do that. So the next time he made a mistake, he went down and encouraged him instead of giving it to him, and he got the most out of him. And that he readjusted as a coach to the way the players were and the personalities, and that's why he had such success.
Well, that's what a head coach really is he manages the team, the personalities. You know, the assistants do a lot of the day-to-day grunt work. The head coach picks out the clips that he wants to show the team every day. And that's not to take away any of the ability that John Cooper has as a head coach and the knowledge that he has about the game. But he's a guy that's more of that he manages the personalities. And you said it right. One guy could be a player that needs to see something visually in a video packet. Yep. Someone else on the bench you can just go up to him and say, hey, in this situation, we need you to do this instead of this. And he goes, oh, I get it. No problem. But like I said, someone else needs to see the video. And you have to, it takes a bit of time to recognize which players you can give a poke, which players you got to coddle. And I think Coop's got that down pat. And for me, my role was try to be as positive as possible, because I think that's how how a coach got the best out of me. I see how players thrive when they have a coach that believes in what they do day to day and shift to shift. And I think you're going to get the best out of your players if you have a positive attitude. Granted, you're going to make mistake after mistake after mistake. That's when you got to pull them in and say, hey, okay, you've made the same mistake 3 times after I've told you. And let's sit down after the game. We'll go through a bunch of video clips. I'll show you what you should do and the things that you have done wrong. And then we'll go from there. But there are some guys that continue to make the same mistake. And that's when that player goes in the coach's office and, they talk. And I think John's really good at it. In fact, last night's game was like one of the best games I've seen in 10 years. The
Florida and Tampa game.
That was an incredible hockey game. So entertaining.
Now, speaking of which, you enjoyed some good years in Chicago. Then 91, you moved to the Islanders. You produced again then off to New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Look, Stump, if it's any consolation, you didn't get moved for a couple of rolls of stick tape and a box of double bubble. You're like players like Seacourt, Olchak, Brent Sutter, Claudy, Pepe Lemieux. These are real impactful players that are a type of talent coming back for you. By now, instead of asking why, were you just kind of keeping your head down and playing just because that's all you can really do?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm a hockey player. I tried to throughout my career. I tried to stay away from all the political and all that kind of stuff, the managerial stuff. I just knew that I had to come out and play. My biggest motivation was, as I got older, was like, there's young kids coming in. I got to be better than them. So I couldn't take a rest. It was just, I was fortunate. I had the opportunity to score 40 goals. I scored 42 with Chicago, and then I scored 40 and then 42 with the Islanders. So, I mean, I became known for being able to put the puck in the net. Not like Squid, but I could do it. And that made me a bit of an asset, along with my ability to be able to get into a few fights or be physical. So that gave me not the opportunity. That's why I'm coupled in with some of the guys that I was traded with.
Nobody had took the sweeper as good as Stumpy did. I used to love that. He used to get it. It was like a one-timer. But it really wasn't. He would kind of pull it in and let it go at the same time, and it was phenomenal how he could do that. I don't know how the heck he did it, because I couldn't do it.
Well, I was a lot better at it, but when you're playing beer league for so long, you never usually use it. But it's an opportunity to take a pass, receive it, and take a wrist shot as quick as you can, and the puck, the goalie, if it's a 2-on-1 and it comes over quick enough, the goalie can't get over fast enough for him to save it. You got half the net. So I think one of the biggest assets I had was my release in regards to scoring. So
I would say that. I mean, I've seen it many, many times, and it was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say,
I wouldn't even have been able to carry your stick around, Rick.
Well, that's what everybody talks about. I weighed like 40 pounds.
Unbelievable.
Now, throughout your career, you played for some characters as coaches, but also you played for some legendary coaches. And let's start with like Al Arbor.
Yeah.
And then moving on to New Jersey, Jacques Lemaire, talk about those two.
Well, after my days in Chicago is when I learned how to play the game the right way. I learned, like, when I was in Chicago and in Toronto, I took the defensive side of the game a little bit for granted. I was never really taught how to play good defense until I came to the Islanders and learned how to play defense properly with Al Arbor and the staff there. And then I moved on to New Jersey, and having a guy like Jacques Lemaire who really dissected the defensive game and put me in a role where I was like a checking forward. Myself, Brian Ralston, and Bobby Carpenter checked all the top lines on every team we played, and that just gave me that much more confidence in my game, knowing now after that stint that I've had Arbor and Jacques Lemaire, I have that ability to play good defense, but I still have my offensive flair about me, right? So, and then when I went on after that to Toronto, I knew I could play good D and I could score. So that gave me a ton of confidence when I got to Toronto again.
Well, talk about that, going back to Toronto. You sat, I mean, it worked once the first time as a free agent. Here you are going back a second time. Talk about this part, though. Having been away for 10 years, did you appreciate, and this is going to be a tough question for it, did you appreciate playing for the Leafs more the second time, knowing how passionate Toronto fans really were, not only from a fan's perspective, but now you were a player and you're coming back as a player? Was your mindset a little different coming back the second time?
Yeah, I think the first time I was a little bit young to really recognize. I knew where I was. I knew that the importance of playing for a big club like Toronto. But the second time around was like, okay, I've been in the league for 10, 12 years. I haven't won a cup. Now, if I was ever going to win a cup, I'd absolutely love to win it in Toronto. So that was a motivating factor to have that opportunity on some pretty good teams that like I said earlier, could well have won the cup. And I think that was like the one thing that stuck out was the fact that I'm going to a good team in Toronto, and we haven't won since '67, and this is a great opportunity to, who knows, like this, what would it be like, Ricky, if you ever won the cup in Toronto? I mean, I can't even imagine it.
It would be absolutely, and I said to someone recently, I said, like, imagine if the Leafs win the cup this year.
Yeah.
With what we're going through right now with the pandemic, would just ruin the whole goddamn thing. Because Toronto, if they win a cup, is going to be absolutely insane. And,
I couldn't agree more.
We had a decent team there in 86, 87, 85 even. We were getting better. You come back to the Leafs, but now you're a more well-rounded player too. You're a better defensive player. You can still score goals. And you guys have a pretty good run there for a few years where you guys were, one of the better teams in the league.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like when I mentioned that opportunity to come back, knowing that I was coming back to a team that, and I'm going to be playing with Matt Sundin. I'm going to play with Freddie Modine. And I mean, that sparked a whole bunch of enthusiasm for me. And being back in Toronto and them not winning the cup for so long, just the opportunity to just vie for the cup fell a little short. But I think that was, there were times before those couple of years, like the '93 team where okay, we've turned the corner with Leaf Nation. We've turned that corner. Now all of a sudden, there were some lean years after the '93, and then our team in '99 to 2001 was another shining light on maybe the potential to go and become the best team and win a cup in the next little while. But that went downhill again, and now we're going through it again. And I'm so excited about game one. And I'm looking forward to watching all the games. I just cheering my Leafs on.
So now, after 20 years, you've certainly played with a few characters throughout the year, coaches, owners, all that kind of stuff. What about some of the players who could liven up a room? Maybe some of the funnier guys and some of the best pranksters you played with?
Well, Rick and I played with. Did you play with Marc Bergevin?
His name comes up.
Chicago.
Yeah, Mark Bergevin was a funny guy. Geez, it's hard to remember, but there's every team's got 20 characters on their team, especially the good teams, the teams that are successful.
Yeah.
have like they're oozing with character. Everyone's got their own little personality, and everyone brings their own little piece of their personality to the big picture, and that's what is a big part, I think, of winning teams.
Well, we also we love a lot of the pranks. Like, how about a couple pranks that you came over throughout your years that either maybe got done to you got done to somebody else, or you saw done to somebody else?
Well, I've seen Ty Domi have his dress shoes nailed to the bench when he tried to pick his shoes up to put them on. They wouldn't budge. I mean, they hammered the nails in so deep that they actually hammered them underneath the wood so that he couldn't get them out.
He must have been pissed.
Yeah, Ty had one of his pant legs cut off when we were on the road, so he was wearing one long pant and one short pant. I remember always going to Calgary, and remember we used to go to Calgary, and then we'd go to all the cowboy stores, because back then in the 80s, cowboy boots were a big thing. And I always remember going there, and I bought a really nice pair of Tony Lama boots. And so I wore them to get on the airplane to come back after our game. And I took them off because they were awful tight on the plane. They got, how your feet swell up. So I took them off. And then when we landed, I tried to put them back on, and there was no way I was going to get my boots on. So I found myself walking through the airport on the upper part of the boots. The upper part? I just put my foot in there, and I'm walking through the airport. I was just, I couldn't get it back on. But anyway, like stuff like that, just, I'm playing the, tying a $5 when we used to go through not charters, but commercial flights. We'd all be waiting for the flight to board, and the whole team would stand there on the wall. We'd tie a $5 or $10 bill to a thread, put it out in the middle of the corridor, and then when somebody comes to pick it up, you just pull it away. And everybody, all the guys were just dying of laughter. There's quite a few people.
Well, it's funny. I remember those very well. I remember there was a few people in airports that would get a little bit pissed off when it was pulled on them, and they look at you and give you a dirty look and say, "You assholes," and everything else.
And then
so that made us even laugh even more.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Stumpy, we've been having a great time with it. We're just, I don't mean to be cutting you guys up, but we're getting down to the last couple of minutes here. We want to touch on a couple of things before we let you go. Number one, 1986, the film Youngblood with Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, you, Zez, and a couple of other guys were all part. How did that all come about? And how did you enjoy that experience?
Yeah, I just was asked by a guy that was around town, and he asked me if I wanted to be in a movie, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? As long as I have ice time, so we'll go. And so we spent the summer filming throughout, some rinks throughout the city, and I got to meet Rob Lowe and Patrick Swayze, Ed Lauder, Keanu Reeves, and although I don't keep in touch with those guys anymore, it was a really great experience to know that I was actually in an MGM movie, and people still love watching it.
Well, we're showing a picture on the screen here now about Patrick Swayze. Did he get you with a towel shot or something in the dressing room? With the towel?
He whipped me with a towel, that bastard. Yeah.
You could probably take him now, Stumpy.
Well, yeah, probably now I could.
Yeah, well, geez, that's not fair.
You probably could have then too.
I would say I would probably.
No,
pick him
you know what? He was like a kung fu guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was really tough.
You don't want to mess with him.
He could kick a soda pop off the top of your head, that guy.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that was pretty good. Well, we want to just one final thought. Your son, Christian, you played international hockey for Canada a couple of times. He played. How proud were you as a father watching him play for Canada at the Olympics a couple of years ago? Yeah,
that was a great opportunity for him. Went through as Rick would know with his own son, gone through a ton of adversity throughout a few 3 or 4 years there in the American League, and finally getting a call from from Sean Burke, and he wanted me to tell Christian on a conference call with the whole staff there that he had made the team, and that was a huge thrill for me to be able to do that. And our family went to Pyeongchang in South Korea and watched the Olympics, and what an unbelievable, wonderful experience. And bringing home the bronze medal for him was a phenomenal thing. I always look up to people who have just competed in the Olympic Games, so I have to look up to him, even though he's shorter than me.
Well, the both of you both hold the distinction, the only father-son combo to each score 50 in the OHL. Did you know that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and Oshawa Generals, when Christian was playing there, they had him and I on the bench, and they gave us a stick that commemorated that record. So that was really nice of them. Really good organization.
Well, that's fantastic, Stump. Listen, we want to thank you so much. Squid, one final comment before you go.
No, you mentioned that with your son. You're always proud of what your children do, obviously. But what they follow in your path, and I know my son has done the same. He's had a little bit of a shot in the American League, like 290 games, but really never got a shot to play bigger than a fourth-line role.
Yeah.
Whereas I think he could have. I think he could have been a good third-line shutdown type player at 6'6", 245. I think he could do the job.
Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, you're still proud of what your kids can do. And you mentioned the stick, the commemorative stick. I see them now for the 1000th game. You get you don't only get one stick. Then your kids get those little mini sticks now. I thought that was pretty cool. When I saw that.
I'm still waiting for my silver stick for my 1000th game. I haven't got that yet. You know what I got? I got my game sheet for that game.
You didn't get the silver stick?
You didn't get the stick?
No, they what's really funny is the guys took a collection too, and I didn't get that either. So I got a framed game sheet. That's what I got for my 1000th game. So I'm gonna have to talk to maybe Shani about seeing if he can order me a stick or something. I'll pay for it. Doesn't matter. But I'd like to have one of those for my fireplace.
Absolutely. You deserve that.
I didn't get there, so I won't get one.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we want to again, Stump, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Great stories. We could talk to you forever, and just good luck moving forward. And I'll catch you at the Duchess and buy you a beer one night.
Oh, that'd be great. Do you still have the memorabilia?
No, that's gone. We've moved to the museum, but we've moved to a smaller place in a condo, and I've got a big setup there. So I still have some stuff. You'll have to come and see that one with Bruce one day.
I remember being down in the basement. That was so impressive.
Oh,
yeah, that was awesome. Well,
I'll look forward to a beer, and I'll look forward to a ginger ale with you, Ricky.
You got it.
All right, Stumpy.
Thank you so much thanks for having me on, guys. It's always
pleasure having you.
To see you guys.
Thanks, man.
Stump.
Okay, ciao, guys.
Thanks. Okay, well, listen, one of the great guys. You could talk to him all night. Just a super guy.
He's a great guy.
The boys just love him. You hear him giving Paul a shout out to the Duchess and all the guys. The guys, he's just one of the boys. All guys most of the hockey players are like that. So it's not unusual to hear that. Just fantastic guy. So, the time just flies by. Squid. We're got a couple minutes left here. We just want to wish our guys luck moving forward in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how things all go. We'll be talking about that. Watch for us because we're going to be doing pregame and postgame comments on Leaf games for all the playoffs. So watch for us. We'll be on Facebook, and we'll give you lots of notice on that. But in the meantime, look for Rick Vive on rickvive.ca. Some exciting news coming up in that camp. He's going to have a new line of clothing called Squidwear. Hats, shirts, coming to you fairly soon. You'll be able to order them. I'm looking for my free piece.
It's going to be a little while, but there's a little example of what they'll look like kind of on a hat.
And I'm looking for my copy, my pair to come, and my shirt.
Yeah, you'll get one, Mike. You'll get a shirt. You'll get a hoodie. You'll get it all. Don't worry.
We'll be wearing them. I got Debbie Young in the other room, and Ryan. They all want one too. So you'll be sending some down to the Wilson household. But guys, be looking for that. We'll be talking about it in the next couple of weeks. rickvive.ca, at rickvive, and at Squid Ultimate Leaf Fan. Find us on Twitter. Go to theultimateleafsfan.com on our webpage and look for us. And guys, we'll look forward to speaking to you next week. Thanks for joining us.